Back in business.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And like I was saying, Cann Park is not only a community, but a actual park itself. And it was one of the few actual parks in which we had to play. It's just like in Daffin Park, there was the swimming pool. We were not allowed to go into the pool. And it's kind of funny, also in Daffin Park, you have Grayson Stadium. Grayson Stadium was the baseball facility for the city of Savannah. His last name is Grayson. I want to say his first name is William. And he pledged that before a black person was allowed inside of his stadium, he would turn over in his grave. So I guess he has been spinning up a storm here lately, because not only have blacks been going there, I actually played baseball there in high school. So, but to take up for these recreational areas, we had Sportsman Park, which is located in the area of Savannah, or the Black Savannah, that is known as Tremont Park. And when you go down, what is it called, 516, going toward Hunter, just as you pass Interstate 16 and you cross the railroad tracks, there's an area right over to your right. This is where the actual stadium used to be. At the park itself, there was a baseball stadium, and there were other recreational type equipment out there for the children who come out during the afternoons to spend their time, the merry-go-round swings and things like that. So it was like a community park that we had to go to, which was very few and in between in the city of Savannah.
From some of the other people I've heard is that there was like a motel also kind of
Yes,
next
it
to
was a motel. I don't know if you're familiar, or one of the big things that's being discussed today is the Green Book. And the Green Book was blacks' way of knowing when they were traveling, places that they could go and spend the night. These were the normal accommodations because we were not allowed in the mainstream motels and hotels of pretty much no city. One of the places, the house is still there, and I can remember when I was growing up, on the corner, which is now MLK and 37th Street, West 37th, on the northwest corner, there was a big two-story house, and it was called Susie and Jimmy's. This was one of these hotels where you could stay. But yes, there was what we would call today a motel at Sportsman Park. And it's kind of funny you said that because I had forgotten all about that. Yes, there was one.
I've heard some of the stories that it was also a rent by hour motel.
Well, later as mainstream renting after the 60s, when mainstream places were opened up, then you had to stay alive. Mm-hmm. And you stayed alive by doing what you had to do. And that was at time, if someone only needed a couple of hours, then you rented it.
Do you remember any special events and things from Sportsman Park at all?
The one big special event that I can remember, and it was also baseball related, was at the baseball stadium. The movie with James Earl Jones, Billy D. Williams, Richard Pryor, Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars, and Motorcade. There's a scene in the movie where they go to play a game, and when they get to the stadium, they're told that the stadium is closed, locked up, or whatever. That is at Sportsman Park. That is the facade of where you would go into the park itself. And Sportsman Park would have been one of the stadiums during that era that Bingo Long would have actually gone to, because this is where those local baseball players who had the skill to be up the Negro League, but for whatever reason did not go, this is where they would play. These would be where your local Negro League players would go.
Okay. So, reading from like the Savannah Tribune, there's a lot of advertisements and stuff offering either like free barbecue, free fruit cuttings, or even concerts and stuff at the park. Do you remember any of those?
Those I do not remember, but once again, this is that way of getting people. I mean, it's one of these two double blades of a sword. One, you're getting people out to come to your facility. Two, not only that, they had like the little juke joints. So when you come out, then you would go in and for say you had the music, you dance and stuff like that. So when you're dancing, you're gonna buy drinks and stuff. So it was just business. You know, we're getting people out here. You can't make money if the parking lot's empty. So that's how you would get people out. By the more people you got out there, the more chances that you would have. These were just, sales gimmicks. So.
Do you remember any of the teams that would play at Sportsman Park?
Yeah. Well, not only Sportsman Park, that was one of the good things about Cann Park. Sunday games were played there. The park was really, I can remember playing Little League and Pony League ball there, and we were hitting the balls out of the park, and you can imagine grown men out there playing, but surprisingly, no windows, no cars or anything, were maybe side dents, but for the most part, no one ever destroyed anything. The Cann Park team was called the Savannah Kilowatts. Their sponsor, at one time, which is now Georgia Power, at one time, Savannah Electricity was being a local company. It was Savannah Electric, and their little emblem was a lightning bolt, arms and legs with a light bulb head, and he was known as Reddy Kilowatt. So the Cann Park team was known as the Savannah Kilowatts. Out of Sandfly and Pinpoint, one or the other, the name of their team was either the Pinpoint Jays or the Pinpoint Blue Jays. Right here out of Liberty County at Allenhurst, there was the Allenhurst Blue Devils. Out of Brooklet, there was the Brooklet Rough Riders. There was a team out of Hilton Head. There was a team out of Ridgeland. And one of those names, if I'm not mistaken, was called the Boll Weevils. So they had these names, and many of these gentlemen were such that they should have been or could have played on any major league team. There was one young man, well, he wasn't a young man, but a gentleman that in later years, he lived down the street from me, but at the time, he was a pitcher for the Kilowatts. And what was so unique about him was, normally, when you're playing baseball, you will adapt your batter to your pitcher. Normally it's righty-lefty. It didn't matter with him because he could throw just as hard with either hand. So when you tried to switch up on him, then he would switch on the mound. So his name was Alvin Waters. And it's kind of funny because the Kilowatts was basically my home team, and today I can't remember but two people's names, and that's Alvin as the pitcher, and the catcher, which was also a musician in Savannah. His name was Ben Logan, and he caught. And big trash talker. I remember once playing slow pitch up in East Tennessee. I had to catch a game, And at the end of the game, the coach from the other team came over and patted me on the back and said, you talk one hell of a game. And I guess that's where I got my skill from, was him just learning how just to bother you about anything. And I'll sit here and say something like, first thing I do is ask you your name.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't tell me your name, I'll sit there and say, you know what? Since I've been playing ball, I've never seen anybody can hit very well who wear black pants and a blue jacket. And I would just, anything. And I would sit there, if a ball is real bad, I said, don't swing at that one. And I would, just everything. My favorite one was back in the days when this was happening, was the tube socks. And I would sit there and say, I've never seen anybody get on base to wear tube socks and short pants, especially when they got those tube socks that's got the red rings around the top. And my whole thing was to get you listening to me and not pay attention to what you were doing, so. But this is just some of the things, but like I said, they had some of the very, very skilled players, very skilled. And it was good baseball.
So were the Bears then the team of Sportsman Park?
Okay, that's the one. The Savannah Bears was the Sportsman Park's team, yes. Yes, it was the Bears.
Now, from the Tribune, it seems like the Bears were the most popular team in Savannah. Would you say that's true?
Not really. Not really. And I would say it was probably done that way because out of all the other teams that were in Savannah, they were the only one who had, let's just say, an attraction. They had the stadium. They were the only ones to have a stadium. They were the only ones to have a motel. They were the only ones to have a little club and having places so that you could bring your family if they didn't want to come in. So when you're pushing businesses, you push there. And so I guess depending on who's telling the story, they probably were, but all the teams in Savannah were very popular. When you go into their neighborhoods, they didn't care where you came from, You may win the game, but you may not win the fight out of it. And that was the good thing about it, was that they were, out of all the years that I sat there, and from the 1950s all the way to the 1960s, the early 1960s is when I moved from the Cann Park area. There were baseball games being played on Sundays, and not once was there ever a fight. Not once was there ever any kind of arguments other than, the call at third base and stuff like that. But as soon as you left the field, you heard the grumbling on the sidelines and on the bench, but that's as far as it ever went. But yeah, those were truly, to me, the good days. And what was unique about, and I can talk about Cann Park, was because on Sunday, all the residents would sit on their porch and they would sit there and watch the game that way. Whereas going out to Sportsman Park, which was, once again, a pure baseball field. And it was kind of funny because the last time I went to Savannah, which was about 3 weeks ago, I went down 516 going into Savannah, and I'd passed that way many a times, but the light bulb came on that the stadium is gone. I mean, that hurt me. That was one of those true historical landmarks that should have stayed, whereas the city of Savannah, if it's not in that little historical district, they could care less about it. But that was something that should have stayed there because of not only the history of Savannah, but the black history of Savannah.
Now, do you remember any of the uniforms, the colors that the teams would wear?
If I'm not mistaken, and you're like this, I think the Bears was a blue and white team. The Kilowatts were red and gray. I think the Blue Jays had a bluish tint to theirs. I think their uniform was almost like the Dodgers type of colors. Um, and of course the Blue Devils out of Allenhurst. I remember them, but I can't remember their uniforms. And the other teams from South Carolina, because normally they would come and play, but most of the time it was the Savannah local teams that played each other on either at Sportsman Park or either Cann Park. And as far as I can remember right now, other than possibly on Gwinnett Street, right in the area where the new Coliseum is going, right across the street used to be ball fields. That area was called the Flamingo. There was a very big club there that was called the Flamingo, and so those fields were called. I'm not sure if they did not play ball there also. But the two main places that I can remember is, like I said, Cann Park and Sportsman Park. And so if we'll just say for the sake of argument, if Cann Park is